What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Havu Moto vlog. Welcome. That didn't sound right, but thanks for coming, guys. Today's video is about my new motorcycle, the 2021 Kawasaki KLX300 Supermoto. This is the first non-Honda that I've purchased. That's not true. I purchased the KTM RC390 only to sell that. I picked that up for $2,500, and last week, in case any of you are interested, I sold it for $4,000 to a nice young man in the U.S. Coast Guard. So he's super stoked about that. I as well am super stoked about that. $1,500 profit for just picking up the bike, finding a good deal, hopping on it. I actually put 200 miles on the bike, and then I turned around and sold it for $4,000. So not too bad there. Flipped a couple of bikes in the past couple years of my riding journey, and now I think it's time to put the CBR 600RR on the market. I've had my fun with it, and I love her so much. She's just like that beautiful girl, but you can't have a conversation with her. That's how I feel. If you guys have been following this channel, you know from time to time I compare motorcycles to women, and that's kind of like an apt analogy that I will use this morning for the CBR 600RR. It's just for the type of riding that I'm doing and for the location that I live, it's just more fun for me to have a smaller bike, something economical, something that still has enough power downtown, but I don't need anything crazy. I just want to be on two wheels and kind of enjoy myself, and I know that now, and I think that had I not had the experience of the 600RR, I might not have known that. And 2 years riding, 10 to 12,000 miles over like 5 different types of motorcycles. It's lessons learned, and I could have saved a lot of money, a lot of time if I had just, done a little more research and maybe talked to some more people, but you live and you learn, you know what I mean? So on a whim, I went out and I bought this KLX 300 Supermoto, and it's interesting because it's pretty much the only low displacement supermoto that you can buy from the factory. The only thing that would be comparable currently is the DRZ 400 Supermoto by Suzuki, and they've been making that for decades, and they literally haven't changed it in decades. It's still carbureted, and it just has that like 80s look to it. I wouldn't even say 90s. I mean, this thing is like late 80s in terms of the looks, in terms of like the square headlight, and like the instrument panel or whatever. It's not even an instrument panel, but so it's a little bit more. I think it's like $1,000 more or so, $1,000 to $1,500 more. And I was just really excited about this new bike, for the 2021 model year that Kawasaki is offering. So I picked it up. I think it'll hold its value pretty well. I think this is a bike that people are going to be interested in. And it was the only one, to my knowledge, available in Sacramento. So I scooped it up right away. And I took it out yesterday for about 180 miles, about 5 hours of solid riding time with my buddy up in Auburn and around Placerville and Folsom and stuff like that. And I have a couple of thoughts about it. Initial reactions, initial impressions. I really like it. It's super fun. Coming from the 600RR, which I've been using to have fun on, I've been using it to commute, I've been using it to just putz around town. It's kind of like a tiger that I keep on a leash and that I keep in a small backyard, right? And that's kind of how I feel when I'm riding around the 600 for the most part, even when I'm in the twisties, because I'm still, I only ride about 2 times a week, and I'm not as good as, I thought I would be at this point. When I first got into motorcycling, I thought I would be practicing every day and, getting a knee down and just really like excelling, like really I had a goal of like being better than other motorcycle riders on the street, which is not a really hard thing to do if you just practice, if you just get out there a lot and you purposely practice, right? Not just, ride around, but actually practice things like emergency braking, practice things like counterbalancing, practice things like low speed maneuvers and like little tight figure eights and stuff like that, and turning the bike and like really leaning it so you're getting over that fear and you really feel what it feels like to just push the bike to its limits and push the tires to their limits. And that, it's more than just time on the bike that I've realized. You have to consciously practice those things, because if you don't, and if you just ride, and even if you hit the twisties every day, it'll still take a good amount of time before you kind of naturally develop that kind of quote unquote by accident, without actually deliberately practicing it. And if you are fortunate enough to be able to just hit the twisties every day, I mean, that's pretty cool. But life happened, and I realized that this motorcycling thing is just like I know I wasn't going to invest that much time into riding the motorcycle. If that's all I wanted to do with life, yeah, that'd be great. And if it brought me so much joy, but there are other things that I want to work on in life. My life is moving in a different direction than I thought it would. So that's a little tangent there, but basically, having the 600, it's just like I couldn't take it to its potential. It was just like caging this great beast. And sometimes I would go on the highway and rev it up, but even then, like I really don't even rev it higher than 14,000 that often. And the highway is the only place you can do that. And yeah, it's super cool to hear the sound of that engine. The inline sounds amazing, and just to feel that speed when she gets higher up in the rev range and she really starts to pull. I mean, that's cool. And she looks great, but how often am I had to keep telling myself that, oh, it sounds so good, it looks so good, but what are you doing with a motorcycle? You're riding it. And when I was riding it, it was hot and it was cumbersome and it was uncomfortable, mainly uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like, I was just like, I don't have to be this uncomfortable. And if I had only the 600RR for the rest of my life, I would learn to live with it. I not even learn to live with it, but learn to be one with the bike. How to ride it correctly, and just develop the strength and the posture and the conscious riding that it would take to really enjoy that experience. But I was like, no, you know what? I'm just gonna sell it, and maybe someone else that wants to take it to the track, or maybe someone else with more skill than me can get something out of this that I wasn't getting out of it, or I wasn't willing to put in the time to get out of it. You know what I mean? So it's a sad thing, but I'm definitely ready to let it go and hopefully find the right buyer for it, because I'm not going to sell it to just anybody. I'm not going to sell it to some punk ass like first timer. No offense to you punk ass first timers out there, but let's get back to the KLX. I know a lot of you are here for the KLX and you have no idea who Hao Vu is, nor do you care about his story. So starting off with the ergos, since we were just talking about comfort, oh my God, it's like heaven for me being on this motorcycle. It's perfectly upright, and it has like these bicycle style handlebars, for lack of a better term. And it just, for me, it feels like being on a bicycle. Like, it's thin and it's really high up, and the way my arms are pretty much vertical. I mean, 90 degrees at my elbows when I'm riding it back perfectly straight. It's just absolutely heaven to ride this thing. And it's just so light that it just really feels like a bicycle to me. Like, and it's quiet too. So I mean, really, it's just like a fast bicycle. That's kind of like the position that I'm in, and the way the handlebars turn and how much freedom you have there and how easy it is to manipulate them. It's just like, if you were a kid like me and you were outside on your bicycle every day for like the first, close to 2 decades of your life, you're really going to feel right at home on a bike like this, a supermoto with those supermoto tires. Keep in mind, I've never ridden a dirt bike before. I've never been on a supermoto, so I don't know anything about dirt bikes or this kind of platform, these thumpy single cylinders. The KTM was a single cylinder, and it kind of had that vibe, but I mean, it was, the sport bike posture, which is the reason why I got rid of it so fast, because I was like, this, even the 600RR is more comfortable than this KTM. Although it was very fun to ride that single cylinder. It had a lot of punch to it, that 373cc engine. This one, the seat height is about 34 inches. I think it's like 33.9 or something. And at first I was a little bit scared about that, because I'm always worried about seat height, because I'm not that tall, but really seat height is not that huge of a deal. I think maybe when you're buying like bigger bikes, like those really heavy adventure bikes that are not only tall, but they're also wide and they're also heavy. Those are really not beginner bikes, and they're really not even for small people. Not to say that it couldn't get done, but it's just like, as a smaller person, some things might be realistically out of your range. But let me tell you that this bike is not. So if you're 5'8", maybe even 5'7", maybe even 5'6", it's not a huge problem, because these bikes are meant to sit a little higher, and they're so light and easy to maneuver that, for me, if I straddle it evenly, I'm on my tippy toes. But I just lean on one side or the other, right? And then I flat foot one side and the other leg hikes up a little bit. And it's not a problem, because this bike is literally so light. I could ride this thing in my sleep. And, I don't have tons of experience. 2 years, like I said, 2 years, 10,000 miles, which is a lot more than a lot of you have that are watching this video, I'm sure. But, just that riding posture, it's a lot different than being tucked in on a sport bike. I mean, that sport bike, it's just like a very committed position, and like the angle of your knees and your feet and your back. I mean, it's like really in being in the cockpit of a race machine, and there's like, it doesn't let you forget that at any moment. So everything you're trying to do on that bike, you're doing it in that like sporty position for the most part. And if you compromise against that position, then you're just like really not getting the proper handling mechanics out of a bike like that. So I will say that just all things ergo and seat height and everything, it's very beginner friendly, and it's very practical. And also for people with more experience going to a bike like this, like me, I've had everything from a 250 to the RC390, which was a 400, to a 500, to the 600RR, and it's just such a breath of fresh air moving to this little light bike, because I mean, it's not fast by any stretch of the imagination, but it's fun because you can just use it. You can just rip on this thing and just go through the twisties. And like, I barely feel like I'm leaning on this bike, to be honest. It's just like I'm kind of like scared to lean on it, to be honest, because it's just, the tires are much skinnier than the super sport tires. And, on the 600 RR, it's like meant to do that. It's meant to lean. So it leans very easily, and you can kind of like feel like you're leaning. But this one, it rises so high up that even, to take the corners like at the speed that I'm taking them, it's just like barely a lean. But I'm having a blast. I'm having so much more fun in the twisties, and I can totally see myself like improving my speed through the corners on this bike much faster than I would on the 600, because the 600 still scared me. At the end of the day, straight up, it still scared me. And to get to the point where that bike wouldn't scare me anymore, I know that it would take a lot longer. It would take a lot more time, a lot more runs, versus this bike. I'll get to that point where I'm going through the corners significantly faster in no time. I just know that after riding 180 miles yesterday, like it became very apparent to me that would be the case. So that's a case for, the smaller displacement motorcycles. Power on the highway, this is not a bike meant for the highway. If you need to take it on the highway and you want to stay in the right lane and do 70, 75 with a little bit of passing power, then yeah, it can do that. But, I wouldn't recommend 75 and above for extended periods of time, because you're just going to be wringing her out a little too much. It's not what she was meant to do, and it's not going to be comfortable because it's so light. It's just not, you got to use the right tool for the job. And if the job you want to do requires extensive, comfortable highway riding, then, don't expect a small 300cc, 300-pound motorcycle to really excel at that. There's a lot of compromises that have to be made when you design a motorcycle, especially when you design a motorcycle that's 300 pounds and has 292 cubic centimeters of engine displacement, right? Like, then the compromises, you could argue, are a little bit more. You don't have as much to work with, and you want it to be fun down low, like, where you're using it, or in that mid-range. So you obviously can't have it all, so it can go on the highway. For me, I personally don't like to take it on the highway, and I will not unless I absolutely have to. I'll take back roads, and that's where it belongs, and that's where you're gonna have the most stress-free, anxiety-free fun on this bike. So that's what I have to say about the highway. The price, I paid $7,500 out the door, which is pretty expensive. I know everything's more expensive here in California. It's an expensive place to live. So if you guys are seeing this across the United States, or you guys picked one up, let me know what you guys paid for it. I'm interested to know. I'm also interested to know in the availability across the country. Like I said, I think this was the only one in Sacramento. I'm not sure about Northern California. I didn't check. I went on a whim and I bought this thing. I made a lot of profit selling bikes this year. I'm going to come up really fat on that CBR 600RR when I sell it, because I only bought it for $2,500, and I'll sell it for at least $5,000. So that's very nice. That definitely had a factor to play in spending $7,500 on a 300cc bike, but it's a fun bike. It's a neat thing. It's like a kind of a gem right now in the Japanese bike market. You can't buy a 300 supermoto from the factory, so that's really cool. I'm proud to own one. I'm happy to own one. It's so fun. It's so fun. Tires, they're not the greatest, but I was shopping for tires yesterday, and the selection for this tire size, it's pretty abysmal. It's pretty sad, especially coming from the super sport realm, where you can just, you have so many tires to choose from. It wasn't even like a full page. It was like a half a page on Cycle Trader, Revzilla, whatever, all the, typical sites. So pretty torn about that. For now, I'm just going to use them, because it's not like I'm, crushing it anyway, using the tires to the best of their ability. They did all right yesterday. Not, coming from a great super sport tire and a fat super sport tire, obviously I'm not going to be expecting the same thing, but it was kind of humbling, to say the least, to be on these road winner tires. Like, what the hell is that? Like, why do you call your tires road winner? If you're calling your tires road winners, are are they really winners if you need to do that? But anyways, I want to talk about the clutch and the brakes. The levers themselves, they have a good feel to them. They're good balance, good weight. I have no problem there. The clutch is not a slipper clutch, but it's so easy to pull, and you're shifting all the time on a bike like this. So it has to be kind of light, and it's pretty light action. So definitely no complaints there all day. Like I said, 5 hours of riding yesterday. I'm really impressed with the brakes. It's definitely more than enough to get the job done for such a light bike with that's kind of, a little bit underpowered. So, you don't want a situation where the brakes don't inspire confidence on a bike like this, and they certainly do. The rear brake has good feel to it, but it's not like instantly grippy, which I actually really like. You have to apply firm, solid pressure onto it, and you have to be deliberate about it. If you really want it to make a difference, then you kind of have to, be like steady and hard. But for going to the twisties, for me, when I'm not as confident going downhill on the steep downhill turns, I like that the rear brake, I can just kind of press it a little bit, and then it gives me that confidence, you know what I mean, to just go into the corner. And the front brake feels really good, firm pressure, it feels good. It bites and it gets the job done. And not once did I think, had a sketchy situation with the brakes or felt like they weren't adequate enough. So overall, I'm pretty happy with that. The mods that I have ordered so far are the lithium-ion battery and from anti-gravity, which is what I do for all of my bikes. It's the first thing I do because that easily sheds like 4 or 5 pounds from that heavy-ass stock lead battery. I ordered a fender eliminator from TST, and I ordered these bar end mirrors that I'm hopefully going to put underneath the handlebars for a kind of minimalist look. So we'll see how that goes. Pretty stoked about it. I'm going to ride into work today, and it's super nice. It's almost 70 degrees already, so it's like reinvigorated my passion for being on the motorcycle. And, instead of thinking, oh, this is underpowered, just think of how much fun you can have using this bike to the full potential. And that's kind of my mindset right now, right? If you're always going to be comparing to other more expensive, more heavy, more powerful bikes, then you're going to have a bad time, right? It's all about perspective. And just the 2 years of riding that I've done, I've gotten perspective. And through trial and error, for sure, through experience, through being privileged to ride a couple different bikes. But yeah, it is kind of weird to move back to a 300cc, but man, I got to tell you, it's fun. It's fun, man. And I have no right to complain because until I'm doing 75 miles per hour in the twisties, I don't need more power than this. I'm going to stick to the back roads. I'm going to see Northern California, and, maybe highway touring is out of the question, but you can't have it all when you have a 300cc bike. That's just how it is. But anyways, guys, thanks. This video went kind of long, so if you stuck around to the end, thank you very much. I hope if you're in the market for something, or if you just wanted to know a little bit about the 300SM, that's my 2 cents on it, So I hope you got something out of it. As always, I wish you happiness. I wish you health. I wish you unlimited joy on your motorcycling journey, wherever it may take you. All right, take care, guys. Bye-bye.